Hello. Welcome to a special edition of All Hat No Cattle. Today we're going to be looking at a study, an online survey that was taken from students at French-speaking universities in the Canadian province of Quebec. According to this survey, 1 in 3 students has experienced some sort of sexual violence over their university career. This survey included men as well as women. The men's responses added up to about 9% of the total, so they were not given much weight in the reporting on this. Speaking of reporting, the Canadian mainstream media has gone whole hog on this story, not bothering at all to looking at the meaning behind the numbers of the study or the questions that were asked. They quoted a briefing released by the authors of the study, a 5-page mini report. There's hardly any context given in this briefing, and what little there is pretty damning. So let's take a look at some of the reporting and the briefing, and some translations that were picked out of the French version of the study, the only full version that has been released so far. With that said, let's get to it. This is the title page of the brief, Sexual Violence in a University Setting in Quebec, Main Findings and Recommended Actions. As you can see here, there were a number of highly educated people involved in the preparation of this material, and it had the cooperation of 6 Francophone universities in Quebec. Here it mentions how the survey was conducted among over 9,000 male and female respondents. Now, here's where the meat of it is. First off, over a third, 36.9% of respondents reported suffering at least one form of sexual victimization, and 24.7% reported experiencing at least one form of sexual violence in a university setting during the past year. 41.7% experienced 2 or even 3 forms of sexual violence. So you'll see the reporting say that there were a large number of multiple instances of violence. Now here's the thing. The violence is never completely defined in this report. There are mentions of number of victims, of number of people being told about the abuse or the sexual violence, but not once do they say how they came to the conclusion that something met the standard of sexual violence. So let's see how the media picked up on this. Here's an article from CBC News. Sexual violence widespread at Quebec universities, study finds. New students, students living with a handicap or illness, international students are most likely to be victimized. And here, Quebec's Francophone universities are sites of widespread sexual violence, where many are victimized repeatedly, according to results of an online survey released today. The violence ranged from verbal sexual harassment to sexual assault. Verbal sexual harassment. We'll get into that later. Here's an editorial from the Montreal Gazette. Sexual violence and Quebec universities. No place in our society is immune from the scourge of sexual violence, but a new study reveals just how prevalent it is at Quebec universities. And here you have a protest sign stating, "It's not a question of luck," according to Google Translator. Perhaps someone in our audience could put in the comments exactly what this colloquialism really means. And here's another from Yahoo News. Sexual violence widespread at Quebec universities, study finds. Quebec's Francophone universities, Francophone means French-speaking, are sites of widespread sexual violence, where many are victimized repeatedly, according to results of an online survey released today. And again, the phrase, the violence ranged from verbal sexual harassment to sexual assault. Right. Now we come to the Twitter portion of the program. These translations are brought to us by a Twitter user known as Beat Confusion. He has a PhD living in Canada. And as you can see, he says, "I have it," referring to the study, open now, and we'll do a live stream of translated findings. So we come down to his first translation. The 36.9% includes 1+ episodes of A, sexual harassment, or B, non-desired sexual conduct, or C, sexual coercion, non-desired sexual conduct. Let's see what that comes out as. So included in the 36.9% is non-physical contact, such as receiving by internet material with a sexual connotation. You could go so far as to say if the internet material contains the words "fuck you," that's a sexual connotation. Thereby, you are a victim of sexual violence in a university setting. Now you see where these figures are really coming from. Okay, now, a subcategory, B1, tried to have sexual relations that they did not want. Look at that number, 2.9%. That's pretty small, especially compared to a 36.9% total. So exactly where are these big numbers coming from? Here's another subcategory. Had sexual relations with them that they did not want. 1.6%. So that's basically anything from petting to actual intercourse or rape, and it's 1.6%. Again, how many sexual innuendos had to be counted to get up to 36.9%? So here, we're including both positive and negative inducements, and it was only 3.1% since the student's arrival and 1.3% during the last year. And now, sexual harassment includes derogatory remarks about one's appearance. A girl is walking by, and within hearing distance, you happen to say, "Not much tits on that one." That is sexual harassment, and that is sexual violence in a university setting. And here's another one. Even a discussion about sex despite it displeasing you, such as an attempt to discuss your sex life with you. That's included in this study as sexual violence in a university setting. And the last one, what is miraculous is that A, which was sexual harassment, as defined, clocked in at only 33.5% for one's whole university career and 22.3% last year. So fully 33.5% of that 36.9% is sexual harassment. So this whole concept of there being wanton rape culture and just swaths of sexual assault on these francophone campuses comes up to 3.4% over one's university career. Not exactly 1 in 3, is it? So there you have it. A study that proves 1 in 3 women are sexually violated, victims of sexual violence on a university setting in Quebec, in francophone universities. Of course, there's that little thing about the fact that they include internet material of a sexual connotation as part of sexual violence, that they include an unwanted remark about your appearance as sexual violence. Let's just not discuss any of that. Let's let that all aside. I mean, after all, women are victims, right? I mean, that's what feminism is teaching us. Women are victims. They can't handle an odd remark. They can't handle getting an email that says, "fuck you, bitch." No. They need protection. They need social services. They need the heavy hand of government to protect them. And look at the media in Canada. They slurp this stuff up. They only go by a small portion of the paper, no context whatsoever, and they immediately launch into a huge campaign of look how terrible it is in Quebec. Look at these universities that are just raping women left and right. Oh my God, think of the women's. Oh yeah, and some guys have it too. Whatever. So yeah, what are you going to do? Once again, mainstream media proves that it cannot be trusted. And I always looked up to the CBC when I lived in North Dakota. I thought they were great. Those days are gone. And once again, feminism just drops the ball completely, trying to prove a point that doesn't exist. So what happens? Everybody winds up with egg on their faces. Everybody looks like a complete fucking idiot. I hope you've all enjoyed this little diversion from my normal content. Perhaps I'll be able to do more of these in the future. One can only hope. I'd like to thank Zakari for bringing this to my attention. I would not have known about it until other YouTubers had already covered it if it wasn't for him. And of course for the great translation help that was provided on Twitter. I owe these people a large debt of gratitude, and I hope to be able to pay it back someday. Thank you for your attention.